Hey everyone, and welcome back to Mentoring Maya. I'm Mohammed Bilal. In our last explainer, we walked through how clinical trial data gets collected. Well, after that, my mentee, Maya, came to me with a really great question that gets right to the heart of making sure that data is something we can actually trust.
Once all that data is collected from the clinical sites, whether it's typed in, sent from a wearable device, or even from old-school paper forms, it doesn't just go straight to the analysis team. Oh no. Before we can even think about drawing conclusions from it, we have to be 100% sure about its quality. And that's where the real work begins.
And this was Maya's question. It's one of those questions that seems simple on the surface, right? But the answer, well, the answer is a super detailed, systematic process that is quite literally the backbone of clinical data management. So today, let's break down exactly how we do it.
Okay, so what are we even talking about when we say data cleaning? It's not just one thing, it's a whole set of activities. And we're really aiming for three key things here: completeness, making sure nothing's missing; validity, meaning the data actually makes sense; and accuracy, making sure it reflects what happened in the real world. Getting this right is absolutely non-negotiable.
So where do we even begin? Well, our first line of defense is all automated. We build what are called data validation rules, or edit checks, right into the system itself. You can think of them as these little automated guardians, constantly watching the data as it flows in, ready to spot any weirdness or potential errors before they snowball into bigger problems.
Now, these guardians aren't just dreamed up by one person. It takes a whole team. You've got biostatisticians who know what's critical for the final analysis. You have experienced study staff who know from real-world experience where mistakes are likely to happen. Then programmers build that logic into the code. And the clinical data management team, or CDM, they're the ones conducting this whole orchestra.
And the process for creating them is incredibly structured. First, we define the rules, the specifications. Then, the programmers get to work building them. The third step is maybe the most important: testing. We throw all sorts of crazy test data at the system to make sure the checks catch what they're supposed to catch. And, of course, every single step is documented. You've got to have that paper trail.
Exactly. So an edit check is fantastic at raising a red flag. It'll tell you, hey, this patient's birth year makes them 150 years old, or this lab value is way outside the normal range. But just knowing there's a problem doesn't actually fix it. So what's next?
I absolutely love this analogy. An edit check is like the diagnosis. It identifies the symptom, the fever, the cough. But to cure the issue, you need a prescription. And in the world of clinical data, that prescription is a whole process designed to get to the bottom of that flagged issue.
And that brings us to the real engine room of data cleaning: query management. This is the hands-on, person-to-person process we use to investigate and actually correct all those symptoms our automated edit checks have found for us.
So what exactly is a query? It's pretty simple, really. It's a formal question that the data management team sends back to the people at the clinical site. It might say something like, hey, the system shows this visit happened before the patient was even enrolled. Can you please verify the correct date? It's a professional request to get things right. And I mean it when I say this is the heart of the whole operation. While those automated checks are the brain, this human-to-human communication is where the real magic happens, where expertise and technology come together to get the data as pristine as possible.
A query doesn't just get sent out into the ether, hoping for a response. No way. It follows a very specific, carefully documented life cycle. There's a clear path from the moment a problem is spotted to the moment it's confirmed is resolved.
So here's how that journey usually plays out. First, an automated check fires, which generates the query. That query is then sent over to the site coordinator. They'll look at their original source documents and send back a response, either saying, nope, the data is correct as is, or providing a correction. Finally, the data manager reviews that response, and if it solves the problem, the query gets closed. Done.
But it's really important to know that not all queries are the same. Most of them need that full back and forth we just talked about. But sometimes you get an obvious typo, like headache instead of headache. For those, we can use something called a self-evident correction, or SEC. This lets the data manager fix the simple error themselves, with full documentation, of course, which makes the whole process way more efficient.
And this right here is the bottom line. It doesn't matter if it's a full query loop or a simple self-evident correction. Every single change that's made to the data is tracked. The system records who made the change, when they made it, why they made it, and what the value was before. This complete audit trail is totally non-negotiable for regulatory agencies like the FDA.
So you see, all of these pieces, The automated checks, the query life cycles, the meticulous audit trails, they're all working together for one single ultimate goal. And that goal is to ensure the absolute integrity of the clinical trial data.
And the payoff for all this painstaking work is massive. At the end of it all, we have a high-quality database that we know is complete, accurate, and consistent. This makes the final database lock so much faster, and it guarantees we're compliant with regulations. But most importantly, it protects the integrity of the science and the safety of the patients who volunteered for the study in the first place.
Which, of course, brings us to the next big question and the perfect topic for our next Mentoring Maya explainer. Once we've done all this hard work and we're finally confident in our clean, reliable database, what are the last few steps we need to take before we can officially lock it down and hand it over for analysis?
We're going to dive deep into that in our next explainer. Thank you so much for joining me for this session of Mentoring Maya. I'll see you next time.